A long-time viewer of the channel wrote in, sent me an email saying he's been reading Buddhist philosophy, says how much Buddhist philosophy means to him personally, asks about how much Buddhist philosophy meant to me, brought about personal transformations for I myself. In a separate paragraph of the same email, he mentions that he's been saving up money from his job for, I guess, several years, and he's thinking about taking a lengthy vacation in Thailand of 1 or 2 years. I take these things seriously. And when people tell me this sort of thing about their life, I think very often I take what they're telling me much more seriously than they do themselves. You're planning to spend a year or 2 in Thailand, not Egypt. Why not Egypt? No, seriously, why not? If your life is 100 years long, 2 years really is much more than 2% of it, because there are a whole lot of years in your life where you have no control over where you are and what you're doing with your time. Most of us, the first 20 years of our life, we didn't have that much control over. Our parents had control, our school, whatever. There are years of your life where your job has control, or you're raising kids yourself, or you're in the army and you're fighting in World War IV, whatever the situation may be. You don't know how many years you get to make that decision for. So if you're going to take 2 years of your life to go to Thailand, that's a big decision that I take very seriously. I may take that much more seriously than you do yourself. If it's not Egypt, you may not think of it this way. You may be passing up now the opportunity to go to Egypt, live in Egypt, get to know Egypt forever. You may never get the opportunity to live in Egypt again. And you probably didn't even think of it that way. You probably didn't think of what it was you were sacrificing to make this time in Thailand possible. But you're sacrificing the whole world. Now, of course, it's a little bit surreal if what we're talking about is Buddhist philosophy. Is it? Because Buddhism doesn't come from Thailand. Buddhist philosophy is not now and never was written in the Thai language. It's written in an Indian language that only survives in Sri Lanka called Pali. So we get into some very interesting questions as to why it would be Thailand if this is about Buddhism. But maybe it's not. I'm not going to presume this about my reader who wrote in to tell me this and ask my opinion. I think on some deep level, we appreciate that to have contact with what's ancient and profound and meaningful in Egypt would be hard work. I think all of us, as Western English-speaking modern people, can also appreciate, maybe without even realizing what the thoughts and assumptions that go into it, that to have contact with the political and social reality of Egypt today, of modern Egypt, to understand what's happening in Egypt now, what happened in the last 20 years to make it this way, and then to begin to really think about what's going to happen in the next 20 years. We can appreciate that to have that kind of meaningful connection to Egypt would be hard work. Why is it that people think they can have a really meaningful connection with ancient Buddhism in Thailand and with the reality of what Thailand is today, modern Thailand, and that it's going to be easy, that it's going to be a vacation? It would be unbelievably hard work, and I'm in a position to know. It would be a tremendous sacrifice that would change you for the rest of your life, maybe for the better. And I think you can probably appreciate that if you just think through, what if you decided to take 2 years to learn the Egyptian dialect of Arabic? And I don't even know what your interest would be in Egypt. It could be modern politics. It could be archaeology and Egyptology, or even just the tourism industry there, connected to ancient Egypt. I don't know. But if you think about how that would change you, 2 years in the desert, shall we say, in Egypt, I think it's very clear how high the stakes are. And somehow, and I think YouTube's been a huge part of it, people have lulled themselves into thinking Thailand is easy, right? And that there's nothing that you're going to lose here. And what is it? Let's think really clearly. What is it you think that you're going to gain? So this guy, in 2 separate paragraphs, he just says to me there's some kind of meaningful connection to Buddhism, and then there's an interest in him. He's saving up money and spending 1 year or 2 years in Thailand. He doesn't make any specific claim about this being a spiritual journey or a search for a more meaningful life or self-transformation. He doesn't say anything like that. It may be consciously that's what he's looking for. It may be that he's not conscious of the extent to which that's what he's hoping for, right? Very few people will tell you openly that they are seeking the kingdom of God on earth. A lot of us are, right? A lot of us sign up for humanitarian work in a third world country, and we're looking for something a lot more meaningful than just washing the feet of the poor or seeing a starving man eat a loaf of bread. There's not a whole lot of spiritual depth to that. There may be something else philosophically, spiritually, something that he wants. He may not have thought that all the way through either, okay? If you're talking to me about 2 years in Thailand, and it's somehow about philosophy, and it's about who you are and who you're going to become, let me ask you, why is it Thailand and not Greece? Why is it not Athens and Delphi, and what the hell, we can throw in the outer islands too. Whatever, there are archaeological sites and ancient literature connect to all parts of Greece, not just Athens and Delphi. Why isn't it Greece? Now, I'll tell you something, okay? I was not raised poor. I was raised by insane left-wingers. I was raised by communists. My parents were. My parents idealized poverty. And I got to see my parents go from being really poor to getting into the middle class. And then kind of by the time it was too late, toward the end of my time at university, they had money to spare. Their financial fortune improved during my teenage years, let's say. All right? I thought about doing ancient Greek and Latin when I was a young man, and I felt intimidated. I felt that was something for people who were born wealthier than I am. I thought that was for people who were more talented or more brilliant than I am, that it was some kind of tremendous challenge that only people with special privileges could possibly take on. All right, and I was wrong, and I'll regret that for the rest of my life. From my perspective today, ancient Greek and modern Greek, these are punk languages. They're incredibly easy languages to study. Incredibly easy work to do. Latin, are you kidding me? Compared to working on Cambodian, Thai, Laotian, Pali, Burmese, the languages I've worked on, currently Chinese, in the past Japanese also. I've worked on incredibly difficult languages, incredibly difficult political history, social history. Okay, all that stuff, from my perspective now as an old man, is easy. But when I was young, I felt that intimidation. I felt that chill of institutional elitism. Like somehow the philosophy of Greece and Athens and Rome and Italy and whatever, the philosophy of ancient Europe, let's put it that way, ancient Mediterranean, that somehow that was something unapproachable, someone would take tremendous sacrifice, tremendous resources to approach. All right? Maybe I was wrong. And maybe there's a reason to be intimidated. There's a reason to be afraid, because all of us can sense that it would be hard work. Yes, you can go on vacation in Greece. And if all you do is go on vacation in Greece, what you will have access to are beaches, alcohol, dance clubs, soccer games, football, to those of you who are in Europe, right? The culture of modern Greece is what you'll have access to. And of course, only in as much as you can communicate in the Greek language or in broken English or however you get by. Right? You're going to have an incredibly shallow, vacuous experience unless you make some extraordinary effort, again, either to connect with the philosophy, with the ancient history, with the modern history, with what happened in the last 20 years of Greece, what's going to happen in the next 20 years, what it is that really makes Greece what it is in some meaningful and profound sense. And we all feel that that would be tremendously hard work. And the funniest thing is, I don't know what it is about Thailand. Even when you contrast what people think of when you say you're going to take a year off to live in Thailand, what if you told them you're going to take a year off to live in Cambodia? What if it was a year off to live in Myanmar, also known as Burma? That sounds different, doesn't it? That starts to sound like hard work. So why is it that you would think that in Thailand you can have an intellectual vacation and sort of get the benefits, sort of get the rewards that in some other place, in some other cultural location like Egypt or Greece, we can so easily see in our mind's eye would take extraordinary effort, extraordinary self-discipline, an extraordinary amount of work. And, of course, above all else, what you're dealing with is the language barrier. But sure, you're also just struggling to overcome your own ignorance. All of these things are finite. In terms of the philosophy of ancient Greece, the more you know, the less there is to know. There are not that many books to read from ancient Greece. The Pali Canon, the true philosophy of ancient Buddhism, it's finite. I could walk you through it. If you pay me to teach you a course in 1 year, I could probably teach you everything you want to know about Buddhist philosophy. I got better things to do. But, it's finite. The literature is finite. The culture is finite. The politics, the philosophy, it's finite. You can do it. You can learn it. But to think of that and recognize that as work, and to recognize that even if you live 100 years, how many years do you have where you're able-bodied and energetic and able, not just financially, but in every other way, to either go to Egypt or to go to Thailand? And why really are you talking to me about going to Thailand for 2 years, right? I don't presume to know. I take what you say to me seriously. You send me this email, I take this really seriously. And when I look back at my own life, nobody took it seriously when I told them I was going to do it. I told people, I'm going to go to Cambodia and do humanitarian work. And people just rumpled up their faces and snarled and laughed. And this is the most ridiculous thing. Well, it was meaningful to me. Okay, I did not go to Cambodia to find the kingdom of heaven on earth. I did not go there as a Christian missionary, and I didn't go there as a Buddhist missionary. I went for a combination of reasons that were really meaningful to me. When I was there in Canada, can't tell the whole story in this video. I went to Cambodia to do a combination of humanitarian work and research that meant a lot to me. And my own brothers and sisters and parents, all they could do was snarl and be snarky. I think none of those people would even admit today what assholes they were to me about it. They didn't get it and they didn't want to know. And you know what? None of us are on speaking terms today. None of us get along. These things have long-term consequences for everyone involved. All right. So now again, someone else might have presumed I wanted to go to Cambodia for stereotypical hippie reasons, for stereotypical spiritual reasons, or even stereotypical Buddhist reasons, and I'm not such a stereotypical guy. So I don't presume about you, the dude who sent me this email, I don't presume that I know your reasons. But I'm saying probably whatever your reasons are, they probably mean a hell of a lot to you, the same way my reasons meant a hell of a lot to me. And if you've been telling yourself this is just something fun, this is just something cool, it's just a vacation, I think you might be lying to yourself. Not lying to me, but lying to yourself about how much this means to you. Now, sorry, I'm just going to get the exact wording here. He says, how did your study of Buddhism benefit you mentally? He says, there are a few important lessons he has adopted from his understanding. All right. What I got out of Buddhism was nothing. Was absolutely nothing. And there were very few people on earth who knew me before I was involved in Buddhism to contrast to during and after. All right. I had already cultivated a level of philosophical sophistication before I got involved with Buddhism that meant that the impact of Buddhism on my life, or in terms of so-called mental benefits, would basically be nil. All right. The type of benefit you can get from Buddhism. Let me be clear. I don't just mean the books. The type of benefit you can get by going to Thailand and learning the Thai language, studying the ancient history that connects India to Thailand, that brings that philosophy so imperfectly across a history of more than 2,000 years, and studying the reality of the modern political history as it's unfolded over the last 500 years, say, and what's unfolding today, and what you can gain by doing humanitarian work at the same time, and seeing how rice is grown, and seeing how mango farms work, and all those wonderful things. The benefit you could possibly get from Buddhism with this incredibly expansive definition that includes the rice farms and even, let's say, the analysis of prostitution and drug addiction and all things that are connected to the culture of Buddhism, right? Ineluctably, all right? The benefit you can get from that is absolutely no different from the benefit you could get from going to Egypt and doing the same thing. It's no different from the benefit you get going to Greece and doing the same thing. All right. What I learned from Buddhist philosophy were things I already knew from ancient Greek, to some extent, ancient Roman sources. I could teach you the same philosophy from ancient Greek and ancient Roman sources. And ultimately, what's really worthwhile is learning to articulate your own philosophy on your own terms for yourself. And your encounter with philosophy really... I have to studiously avoid using terms that hippies have so totally perverted the meaning of that the audience will misunderstand. I can't talk about self-knowledge. I can't do that. Look, if you've been watching this YouTube channel for 5 years, you've never seen me wear a pair of glasses even once. You have also never once heard me attribute the improvement in my vision to the miraculous effects of a vegan diet. The fact is, right around the same time I started eating a vegan diet, I stopped wearing glasses. I could probably sell a diet book. I could probably come out here with a bunch of wild speculation about how the anti-inflammatory effects of the vegan diet or eliminating the last traces of dairy from my diet somehow connected to my sinus cavities and my vision. I could probably put together a plausible case that somehow there's a cause and effect relationship between a vegan diet and the fact that I don't wear glasses anymore, all right? I don't believe that myself. It's very easy for people to become beholden to the particular philosophy that comes into their life, that challenges them to develop the vocabulary to articulate their own philosophical thoughts, to ask themselves and ask others philosophical questions, and to challenge assumptions that may be completely unexamined in their lives, that may have come into their lives, right, from their parents and grandparents, okay? Nothing could be more pathetic than to meet an angry young man who feels that the heavens opened up to him because he discovered the philosophy of Ayn Rand, so-called objectivism. All right? I digress to say very briefly, it's possible that Ayn Rand is the worst author ever to be officially categorized as a philosopher, to be admitted into the philosophy section. Terrible writer, terrible philosopher. Nevertheless, it's philosophy. And you don't have to look far on the internet to meet young men who feel beholden to this book for the positive effect. Like, oh, this book came into their lives, and for the first time, they thought through the difference between objective reality and subjective reality, and what's real and what's opinion, and what's their personal value, and what does it mean to be an individual in a society. These questions, right? And it doesn't occur to them to challenge the authority or the miraculous benefits they've gotten from this particular author by thinking through, hey, wait a minute. I could have developed myself in this same way by going to Egypt. I could have developed by going to Athens. Actually, the kind of benefit I've had, the kind of transformation I've been through here, I could have worked that out for myself using other very different materials, right? Maybe this isn't something special about the book. Maybe there's something special about me. Maybe there's something special I've accomplished. Even if the particular book that was in your life at that time provided you with the vocabulary, provided you with the occasion to, engage in those reflections. All right. What are the reflections that, the Buddhist corpus of philosophical text provides you with? A lot of reflections on desire, the relationship between desire and happiness, the extent to which, pursuing a desire and then fulfilling a desire and then maybe feeling exhausted afterwards might be worse than if you had just really examined the nature of the desire at the beginning of that process and had overcome it without indulging yourself. I can't call that deep, man. I can't. There's nothing deep about it. Nothing at all. Okay? There's nothing deep about Ayn Rand. There isn't. Right? But there are going to be some people who become beholden to this book. This book, it happened to be the right book, that brought this vocabulary into your life, that gave you the occasion to question and challenge these ideas, to question and challenge your own assumptions, most likely, to question and challenge the assumptions that were inculcated into you by your parents, by your grandparents, by your school teacher, possibly by the Christian church, if you grew up in a Christian family, possibly. And I know with Ayn Rand in specific, that's also, a lot of these right-wing guys had Christian parents, and Ayn Rand liberates them. They become atheists to overthrow Christian dogma. I understand the psychological significance of that in their lives. All right. All right. E quovis ligno. From any block of wood, an idol can be carved. From any block of wood, human beings can create a god, something they idolize, idealize, something they cling to. All right? Imagine you're in a room alone and you're cold. You pick up a heavy stone and you walk back and forth in the room. And miraculously, this heats up your body heats up the air around you, right? Before you know it, it seems like there's warmth all around, and yet the stone itself remains cold. That's Buddhist philosophy. There's nothing there. You're attributing meaning to something when the meaning is in the work that you do. And you can do that work in Egypt. You can do that work in Greece. You can do that work anywhere at all.